Awesome.
Tom, good to see you. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat. I know you've been jetting around the world, going to lots of exotic places and making me jealous. So I appreciate you taking a bit of time to come and have a chat. So just to kick off, I want to sort of reflect back something that you said to me when we were talking last time. You made a really interesting point. You said, I want to change the way products are built. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. Why? I mean, what do you mean by that exactly? And why is it important to you?
Yeah, I think like the way in which we built products over the last kind of decade has been very one-dimensional in the sense of there's a one-size-fits-all interface. Every user is seeing the same, by and large, seeing the same interface. Obviously, we're seeing different content now. But I think, given how different we are as human beings and the different personalities and views we have on the world, I think we're now at a point in society where we can begin to build out different experiences for different types of people. One, because it gives us kind of what we want to see and kind of what we're looking for.
Yep.
But two, because it also helps us get to our answers quicker. So the view for us is to kind of build a world where we can help other product teams build personalized, adaptive user experiences for their customers, essentially.
Okay. And what is it that set you on that path? I mean, it's a pretty big project you've taken on there. I mean, what is it that set you on that path?
I think like I've built a few companies of my own in the past. So this is company number four for me. And there's always been an underlying kind of like an undercurrent of wanting to give people personalized experiences. So the first company I built was how do we help people have personalized conversations online and kind of like in a more personalized way. The second company was how do we help people discover their surroundings in a more personalized way. So I've kind of been playing around with the world of artificial intelligence for well over a decade, and have seen kind of from the kind of convoluted neural networks to machine learning to hybrid recommendation engines to what artificial intelligence is today. That's kind of like the first thing is like I've always been on that path of personalization. But I think the second thing for me was I was working for the UK government and I was doing some work around predicting human behavior to identify radicalization. And a lot of the work that I was doing there became super applicable into the work that we're doing today. So it's kind of that undercurrent of personalization combined with the kind of more defense heavy work that I've done, which helped me kind of see that actually there's a bigger problem to be solved here, and there's something that we can have a pretty positive impact on the world by building something that gives people more personalized experiences. And I think the third thing is the itch that I've always had, which is when I've built companies in the past, you get to a point where you're experimenting, you're trying to learn more about your customers as quickly as you possibly can. And you're forced to run A/B tests that often don't yield the results that you're expecting them to. You spend too much money on them and you spend too much time on them. And the view that we had is can we get to a point where we can begin to build out experiences that are quicker to give us time to insight and are actually having a positive impact on our users?
Yeah, okay. And what is, I mean, just give us a sense of what success looks like. I mean, where do you want to be in 5 years' time, for example?
Good question. I think the big thing for us is to be powering some of the largest products in the world, and powering the way that they run experiments and understand how their customers are behaving within their products. So, the big thing for us is right now we work specifically with typically regulated industries, banks, insurance, healthcare,
Right.
kind of companies that don't have the ability to run experiments as easily. We're now expanding into e-commerce, we're expanding into kind of consumer mobile. All of that, we see in 5 years' time being the company that's powering most of these companies to building the right product for the right person at the right time.
Right. Okay. It's a pretty big ambition there. And I mean, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and most people would say to me that building a business, and you've done this a few times, so you'll probably be even more aware of this than I am. Building a business, it's a bit of a roller coaster. I mean, there are good days, there are bad days. I mean, what is it about this that particularly kind of gets you out of bed every day to ride that roller coaster? Because I mean, it's not easy. I mean, give it, particularly you're a serial entrepreneur. I mean, there must be something that you really enjoy about it.
Other than being a glutton for punishment. I think particularly with this company, like I certainly feel with this company that everything that I have done in my life has come up until this point here. Like it
Right.
feels like this is the right company for me to be building. Um, but I also am very much enjoying that I'm seeing some of the predictions that I made maybe 1, 2 years ago are now coming into fruition. So it's kind of like right time, right place for me to be building this company, but also right time, right place for the market. Like the market is changing rapidly thanks to artificial intelligence. And I'm having an incredible time being one of the people that is trying to kind of leverage that technology and rethink and create an industry.
Yeah, I mean, so often timing matters, doesn't it? And it sounds like you've
100%.
got the timing right this time. That's really good. And what is it about your personal values that has shaped the way you've approached this?
I think one of the ways that most people know me will say I lead is by radical candor. So I think kind of, being as upfront as possible at how things are working and not working is key and is kind of a pretty important thing when it comes to product development.
Yeah,
Um, I think the other thing is, there's there's an element of well, I guess radical candor is certainly the biggest thing. I think that's kind of like the biggest way in which I lead. And I think that's kind of like one of the values that I hold closely to me. And I think that transcends across into just being kind of authentic about the things that you're doing, caring deeply about people. And given some of the work that I've done in the past, like I am quite ethically minded. I've always been heavily involved with GDPR and data security. How do we basically build these products in a way that doesn't impose on people's values and actually gives them a better experience? I think that's the other side to all of this that we think quite deeply about.
yeah. And what is it? I mean, building a business is hard. We all know that. What sort of what are the things that keep you awake at night?
Um, are our customers having the best experience possible is probably the biggest thing that keeps me up at night. Like, what can I do to be making their experience better than it already is? That's probably the number one thing. I think in the past, there's always been like, in previous companies, it's have we got enough runway? It's have we got the right team? But, particularly with this company at the moment, I'm very proud of the team that we have working on this. We've got researchers from some of the best universities in the world. We've got some incredible technical talent that has come across from various organizations. We've got a strong founding team and executive team that are building this out at the same time. So, from my perspective, I'm strong on the team. I'm fortunate that by being in the market at the right time, fundraising is also less of a concern than it has been when I've lived in Europe. So, I think my focus now is very much on how do I make sure that our existing customers are having the best time possible? And how do I make sure that the way that we portray ourselves is also going to lead to other customers wanting to work with us?
Yeah, yeah. And as you've been building the business, I mean, have there been particular surprises where you've sort of, oh, I didn't think it was going to turn out like that? Have you had any of those sort of moments?
There's definitely been surprises in regards to kind of how the market works today. Like, I think I
Right.
came in with an expectation of how the market worked. And, by and large, it is as I expected it to. But I think but I think one of the things I've definitely found is how far behind big parts of the market is lagging versus, kind of traditional startups. And I've had conversations with teams where, it's normal for them to run 1 to 2 experiments every 6 months and only make one change within their product on a 6 month basis. Whereas, with us, we're shipping 4 or 5 times a week, if not more than that. So I think that's kind of been a bit of a surprise to me. But what I will say is kind of with artificial intelligence, with people shipping faster than ever, I'm seeing that change happen in real time thanks to things like Claude Code, which again is then shifting the blame to, one of the things that slowed down teams the most was engineering. It takes a bunch of time to build things, takes a bunch of time to test things. We're now in a point where Claude can do the building and can help teams build and ship faster. So the onus is going from the engineering team on being able to ship quickly to the product team on, okay, cool, we can ship faster than ever, but how do we know if users even want this? And that's obviously again a massive benefit to us because that's essentially the thing that we're trying to solve for.
And have there been moments, have there been sort of critical moments that have reshaped the way you think about building the business? I mean, have you run up against stuff and thought, oh, I'm going to have to really change tack here?
Not so far. I think like we've been pretty stubborn on the path that we're building towards and the way in which we're building it. There have been a few things that we've done. The biggest change is the way that we define our company is, at the end of the day, the like long-term vision for this company is how do we make agents behave in the most human-like way possible? And in
Yeah.
order to be able to do that, we need to basically be able to understand human behavior at a level that has never been mapped out and basically built. Um, So there's kind of like when you think about the human system and the way that we operate with the world as human beings, we've got the arms and the legs and things that make us kind of allow us to interact with things around us. You have the kind of like what we call the nervous system, which is like essentially what attaches connects the brain to the arms and the legs. And then of course you've got the brain, which is the thing that's essentially kind of calculating and working out what you should be doing. When we first started this company, we were building the arms and the legs and the brain and the nervous system. We took a step back and we kind of said to ourselves, like, there are so many people building the arms and the legs. Like, let's focus less on the arms and the legs and focus more on making sure that we're building the best brain and nervous system possible. So I kind of like that's the kind of one, I wouldn't say pivot, but the one strong decision that we made to allow us to focus on the thing that we're really good at.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like that focused you, it helped you focus on exactly the right thing. I mean,
100%.
let me ask you about that because, I mean, there's a couple of things around that. So, one of the challenges of being a CEO or building a business is that you've got to get a whole bunch of people focused on the right things. I mean, what's your take on how you get everyone? I mean, just picking up your last point, how you get everyone focused and on the front foot, if you get my drift.
I think customer feedback definitely helps, but I wouldn't say customer feedback is everything. You know, like customers know what they're used to, so they will tell you what they're used to seeing. And most of the time that's a good indicator, but isn't necessarily it shouldn't necessarily be the only indicator. Um, so I think there's kind of like listening to customer feedback and kind of building that into your process and making sure that you're constantly shipping fast enough in order to get that feedback. Now, the kind of caveat to that is we typically work with enterprise companies that move slowly, which means that it takes us longer to get feedback. So I think, you know, like we've built our customer advisory boards. We've got advisors that are kind of senior product people from various organizations that we work with. So they're able to give us feedback in lieu of like an enterprise customer that's going to take a little bit longer to give us feedback. I think the other way in which it's really important though is we split quite early into squads. So squads is something that Spotify originally created. And essentially it was kind of allowing teams to split down into smaller groups of people so that they could essentially red team on specific problems that they wanted to solve. That's something that we did early on, and we made that decision because there are so many different parts of the business that need to be built. But as long as you can orchestrate and build them in the right way, then you can split down into squads and focus people on very specific things, and then have one person in the team or more that are essentially connecting that all together. And in that case, it's my co-founder who leads on the product side of things. And she's obviously orchestrating out what needs to be built in order to make this a success.
And on that point about what you do and don't do, I mean, one of the things, I mean, I suffer from this. You know, this kind of shiny object syndrome. I mean, I often get distracted by stuff that really I shouldn't be distracted by. I mean, how do you, you know, if you like cut through all the noise, because there's huge amounts of stuff going on, particularly around AI. I mean, how do you cut through the noise to work out exactly what you and your people should be focusing on? I mean, above and beyond the kind of
Yeah.
customer feedback bit.
I mean, I will say, like, I think shiny object syndrome is probably the single biggest problem in San Francisco right now. You know, every time there is something new that comes out, be it OpenClaw or a new model from a new lab, like you'll see the next three kind of months of companies spinning out and building something on top of that. Now, like, that's absolutely okay, but I don't think it necessarily leads to the it's not going to necessarily be the silver bullet. It's not going to allow you to necessarily build the next billion-dollar company. Like it's, you know, kind of there's a big focus on like, let's use the best technology to build the best company ever. And that isn't necessarily the way things work. Look at most enterprise companies. They are not using the shiniest technology. They are using archaic technology. And they're the ones, the billion-dollar companies. So I think that is absolutely something that San Francisco suffers from. Honestly, I think it really, for us, I'm trying to kind of think about what we do other than, you know, internally kind of making sure that we're looking at customer feedback and listening to what people are saying. Really, like the only way that you avoid it is by, you know, again, as part of the squads that we have squad stand-ups every day. We give people a place so that they can submit ideas and submit information. And really, it kind of comes down to someone on the team, which again is my co-founder, to triage all of these ideas and identify which ones we should be focusing on and which ones are actually going to move the needle of the company.
So it's a good thing that she's pretty focused then, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And the other, which is a sort of related area, the other thing about building a business at the moment is there is just a huge amount of uncertainty. So there's lots of stuff that can distract you, but there's also lots of stuff where you look at it and think, well, I don't really know which way that's going to jump.
Yeah.
But you think about the kind of geopolitics at the moment, with Trump and the kind of Middle East and all that sort of stuff affecting oil price. I mean, there is huge amounts of uncertainty at the moment. What's your take on, if you like, finding your way through the uncertainty, working out what you're gonna, which horse you're gonna back and which horse you're not gonna back?
Yeah, good question. I think the way that I think about it is if it's something that you can build in a weekend, it's probably not that defensible and therefore probably not worth building. Like that's kind of the,
Right.
at a high level, like for specific features, that's different. Like I'm sure you can knock out features pretty quickly over a weekend and then obviously strengthen them, reinforce them, and then obviously make them more defensible. But I think the thing that we're spending most of our time thinking about at the moment is there are more and more people building in this space. Anthropic will release a security module to the business and wipe out half of the security companies that exist, or at least tank the markets for a day. So I think there are some like genuine concerns. For me, it's about finding the thing that you're really, really good at, and making sure that it is a small enough niche that nobody cares, but a big enough niche that it can still be a multiple billion-dollar company. And I think human behavior is an interesting one for us because, yes, there are a few people building in the space now, and it's becoming more popular. And I even think some of the, like, I mean, I know some of the large language model builders are thinking deeply about human behavior, but it's a very different problem to try and solve. Most people, when they're building agents and artificial intelligence and LLMs in general at the moment, they're thinking about maximum compute. They're thinking about how do we make sure that this agent has all of the context it could ever need and it performs in the best way possible, and we don't care how much money it costs. That fundamentally isn't how humans behave. Humans behave don't like human behavior is not like that at all. So if you're trying to build something that solves the problem around human behavior, it's a pretty significant shift to the way in which we've been building models up until now. And I think that's what gives us a pretty unique niche when it comes to building our own models from that perspective. So yeah, it comes down to finding the thing that you're really good at, finding the people around you that are working on the idea as well, that are also good at solving that problem, and then making sure that you've got a big enough market that you can build a big business, but a small enough niche that no one is going to kind of eat your dinner because they also see it quickly. But then it comes down to how quickly you can execute.
Yeah. And just on that point about how quickly you can execute, I mean, what is it do you think that gives you the edge? Because I mean, all the agile stuff, squads, I mean, it's all pretty well known, isn't it? I mean, it's not
Yeah,
new.
for sure.
What
Yeah.
is it do you think that gives you the edge on that front?
I think being in San Francisco is a very big delta, or
Why,
sorry, big alpha.
why is that? I mean, why do you say that?
I think some of the, kind of some of the smartest people in the world are building here. They're at the frontier of technology. Like going back to the shiny object syndrome, there's a reason that there's shiny object syndrome here, and it is because people are pushing the boundaries when it comes to technology. Typically speaking, when I travel to even New York, but certainly when I come back to Europe, it's the conversations I'm having here are probably 3 to 5 months ahead of anywhere else in the world. So you kind of have that first mover advantage over other parts of the world. And if you can then leverage your market by targeting New York or Europe or other parts of the world, um, suddenly you can get ahead versus other companies that are trying to build in the space.
Yeah. And what about, sorry, I just want to follow that line a second. I mean, what about things like DeepSeek, kind of technology that is incredibly powerful,
Yeah,
built for a tenth of the price?
yeah,
And I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff going on in China.
100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
how do you keep, I mean, what's your take on how you keep ahead of that? Because that is actually a pretty powerful threat, isn't it?
100%. There's a company that's kind of come out in an adjacent space to us at the moment, which people are going crazy for at the moment. And super interesting. Like they're building something interesting in the space. I've always felt that the data that you can have access to in China is far better than the data that you will have in Europe because fundamentally there are less privacy laws
Yeah.
over in China versus other parts of the world. Like I remember when GDPR came into play, and I had a bunch of friends that moved to China because they were like, "Hey, we're building vision models, or we're building something in the vision space, and um, we can have access to cameras and technology that we can't have access to in Europe anymore." So I kind of get it from that perspective. Honestly, the way in which you stay up to date there, um, research, following the research labs. Like we have researchers that work on our team. They're always staying 3 steps ahead when it comes to publications that are coming out. you're following the various research schools and the various research conferences that come out to make sure that you're always reading and staying on top of the cutting edge that is coming out, not just from the US, but from China and beyond.
Mm.
And I think that gives you a good idea of where the market is heading, and also is giving you good ideas for how you can be building out as well. So I think, the when I built previous companies in the past, I often haven't thought about academic research. I haven't felt the need, but I would say for the first time ever, academic research and publications, everyone on our team, we have a Slack channel that is dedicated to research reads and making sure that the people are staying on top of academic research.
Mm. And why is that? I mean, just to pick up that point, I mean, why is that? Why is academic research particularly relevant to the space that you're in and the things that you're doing? I mean, why is this different from previous companies?
I think, like, given that we're building more at the foundational level, and building out models that require kind of a deep understanding of artificial intelligence is one of the reasons. But I think the other thing is, when it comes to cutting edge, typically speaking, it will happen in academia or defense before it happens anywhere else. Now, defense is a little bit more difficult to follow. I'm privileged in that I do have access to some of that information. But I would say, typically speaking, academic or defense is where you're going to find the cutting edge of technology. And then it's beyond that that then gets commercialized, and someone will then go and build it into a company. So staying on top of the academic research allows you to kind of see what's happening 3 to 4 cycles from now.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I get that. I can see that. So it's really about sort of. I'm just trying to think of the phrase sort of knowledge diffusion, isn't it? Really, it's
Yeah,
that knowledge diffusing out, and you trying to be at the front end of that, picking it up.
100%.
People do, I guess. Yeah, I see that. Let me ask you about the kind of journey and what you've learned from it. I mean, just as a starter, what would you say are the things that have made the business successful? I mean, when you look at what you're doing, what are the factors that are making a big difference here?
Um, Proliferation of artificial intelligence, unquestionably. Like, you would not have been able to build something like this 5, 6 years ago. I think and I'm not like, I don't think I'm overemphasizing that at all. Like, I think the way in which we can ingest data, the way in which we can experiment, like, it's fundamentally changing from a product development side of things, but then even from a kind of like people building technology, it's fundamentally changing. 5, 6 years ago, we weren't looking at Lovable, we weren't looking at Bolt, we weren't looking at Claude Code, we weren't looking at Cursor. And now these have proliferated across even enterprise organizations that we're talking to who have implemented Claude Code. So I think artificial intelligence is one thing. Unquestionably, team is another on our side. Like, team is a huge alpha for us. Like, as I say, we've got researchers from some of the best universities in the world. We've got behavioral scientists. We've got a team that I've not been able to put together in the past. And partially that's me being here in San Francisco, and kind of finding the best talent that wants to come and join this journey because they see that this is an interesting problem that needs to be solved. And I think partially is I've built 4 companies, I've built a pretty strong network of people, and I'm now going back to this network and being like, you were on my like black book of people that I would want to go and build a really successful company with, and being able to pour them into that has been, a godsend for us. One of our chief scientists was the founding CTO of Benevolent, which was the first AI unicorn in the UK. Like, I worked with our head of engineering in the defense world, and she's got a very strong understanding of human behavior. Like, it's these things combined that give us huge alpha. I
And
think I would say the other thing that like it gives us a kind of unique edge, or allows us kind of like, why is this one working so well right now, is investors in the US are quite different to investors in Europe in that all of our investors have played a pivotal role in making sure that we're speaking to the right people at the right time.
right, okay. So they've been leveraging their networks to help you make.
100%.
Just to come back to the team thing, because that's quite interesting. I mean, if you're, I mean, I get the logic, surround yourself with really smart people. I mean, that makes an awful lot of sense in a lot of situations, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But the challenge there is how you create an environment in which they can do their best work and thrive,
yeah.
given what we were talking about before about the distractions and the uncertainty. What's your take on how you create that environment that really enables people to flourish and do what is quite challenging work, but to do it at a really high standard? Because that's what you're after, isn't it?
100%. And I think, like, this is one of the like hardest problems for people that are building model companies at the moment. one of the things that we have all had to learn to do is take people from academia across into commercial world and make
Right.
sure that they can still deliver value to the company in a fraction of the time that they would normally be used to be delivering value in an academic setting. So I think that's like, that problem is not just our problem. It's a problem for OpenAI. It's a problem for Anthropic. And I think, some of the things that we've been able to do have been sitting down and talking to the teams at Anthropic and OpenAI and various other labs to understand how they've done things and what they've done to essentially make sure that they can get the best out of their researchers. Um, and I think, again, one of the big things that really, really works well for us is splitting down into squads where we have cross-functional squads where you've got engineers, researchers, and commercial teams all working together to solve a very specific problem, which is then obviously going to improve the relationship that we have with our customers because they're having a better experience. So I think the combination of knowing how to leverage your researchers and having squads are the two most important things for us. That won't be the case for every business, but that's definitely what worked well for us.
Sure. And in terms of the things that you've learned along the way, I mean, let's just explore that for a little bit. I mean, what would you say are the things that the most difficult? What has been the most difficult decision you've had to take, and what did you learn from that?
Honestly, I think one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make so far is like saying goodbye to like early team members and allowing them to move on to their like next role. I think it's a difficult decision that you make in any company that you're building. Like when the first members of the team are let go, it's kind of like there is damage control from a team perspective and making sure that the team understands why the decision was made while still protecting the person that no longer works at the company. Like I think that's something that is never easy to walk, and
No, no, no.
you have to like do that in the right way. Like you have to do right to the person that was working with you because you care about them, but then at the same time you don't want to scare the rest of the team for them to think, oh God, am I next sort of thing. So I think that's kind of like the hardest thing that I've had to do so far. I think what I've learned from it is, and I kind of already knew this, but it's kind of just being reinforced to me, is every company goes through different stages of growth. The first team members that you work with, I would say the majority of them end up moving on their own or because they no longer fit the needs of the company. And then you have the kind of next group of people that can come in and take the company to the next level, and then there'll be the next level that comes after that. So I think that's kind of like one of the things that you just kind of have to be aware of. And of course, there's going to be people that stick around for the whole journey, like the best ones will, and they care about the company. Um, I think the other thing that I've learned, which is kind of like linked to that, is the company team, like team sizes break at different stages. Like typically you'll have your first break at 20 to 30 people, then you'll probably have another break at 60 to 90 people, then you'll have your another break at 150 to 200 people. And it's just about making sure that you've got the right processes and people in place so that when the team does break for various reasons, it could be communication, it could be people not working together, whatever it is, making sure that you've got the right people in place to solve for that problem is the most important thing. That's the thing that makes or breaks most companies. And of course, if you look at most early stage startups, one of the single biggest reasons that these companies don't work out is because of a co-founder breakup. So, I say like 20, 30 people, but there's also like the 1 to 3 people, which the co-founders can't work together either. So human dynamics, human resources, all of that fun stuff, that is the single hardest thing to making a team successful, but also the most important thing to making a team successful.
I mean, that's right. I mean, I certainly share that view. I mean, getting the people bit right is one of the most important things. It's also one of the most difficult things, isn't it? And it has a habit of going horribly wrong when you least expect it. That was my experience.
Yeah.
Not that I have to do that anymore. Let me ask you about sort of similar related question about mistakes. I mean, personally, I think all CEOs make mistakes. I mean, there are two kinds of CEOs in the world. There are people that make mistakes and people that pretend they don't. Tell me about what would you say is the biggest mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from that?
Biggest mistake I've made, it's a bit of a cop out, but it is genuinely, I think the biggest mistake I've made was not moving to San Francisco sooner. And I'm not saying this as someone that's trying to kind of like max on San Francisco and say how amazing it is, because there's things I love about the city and there's things I absolutely despise about the city. But being here has given me access to such an interesting group of people and allowed me to think in ways that fundamentally I just wasn't thinking while I was living in Europe. Um, that I wish I'd moved here 10 years earlier. And candidly, like while I was studying at college, like or at university, because I was over in the UK, I thought about going over to the US. And, I sometimes think to myself, I wonder where I'd be now if I had taken the jump then. Maybe I'd be in a worse position. Maybe I'd be in a better position. Maybe it'd be where I am now. But I think that's definitely one of the things that I think about a lot.
Yeah. And let me ask you about that. I mean, is it about being surrounded by, if you like, cognitive diversity, people being with people that think very differently? I mean, is that what it's about? And why does that matter to you?
I think it's less about people thinking differently because I would say there is a groupthink mentality here in San Francisco, which is one of the things that I don't love about the city. But I think it's this kind of most people in startups have a chip on their shoulder. I mean, that's kind of like one of the indicators that an investor's going to look for is has the founder got a chip on their shoulder? Are they like driven to kind of try and solve a problem that they care deeply about? And I think everyone is trying to everyone's trying to be successful, which is good and bad at the same time. But the good side of it is it means that people are sharing knowledge with one another. They're doing everything that they can to basically build success in general, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. And that's something that I didn't feel as much in Europe. In Europe, I felt that, and I think it kind of to some extent comes down to a capital problem in that there is less capital available in Europe. Which means that people are competing for capital, whereas
Mm.
here capital is abundant. So instead of competing for capital, you're doing everything that you can to support each other. The single biggest example is, when friends ask me to help them with a fundraise in Europe, they're kind of they really appreciate the support that I'm giving them. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for that. But the honest answer is here in San Francisco, I am incentivized to bring the best deals to the investors that I know. One, because it makes me look good, and two, because it gives me a reason to have a conversation with that investor. Um, you can extrapolate that out to the way in which people think in this
Yeah.
city in general, and that gives you an idea of the differences between kind of Europe and the US.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different way of doing things. That was my
Yeah,
experience. I got to say, I love San Francisco actually, but that's a separate conversation. And let me ask you about what you've enjoyed. I mean, we've talked about the things that keep you awake at night and the mistakes. I mean, what is the thing that you enjoy the most about what you're doing?
every day being different, and having the opportunity to fix technically challenging problems that I never thought that you would be able to fix. Like some of the things that I'm seeing happen within our product, even just like in the last day, one of the team built a new feature, rolled that feature out, and I was testing it at like 3 o'clock this morning, and just playing around with it to see how it worked. And kind of I'm sat there for a second, and there's all these things you're thinking about. Oh, I want to fix this. I want to do this. I want to do this. This needs to be done. Like blah blah blah. And then you take a step back for a second, and you look at this like thing that's been done, this new feature that's been developed, and you're kind of looking at it and going, "This was not possible
Yeah.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
1 year ago, and now here it is in the product that we're building and that we're shipping to customers." I think that's the thing that I get pure delight out of. I also get pure delight out of seeing the team excited about what we're building and caring deeply about the fact that this, if built in the right way and executed on properly, won't just change the lives of everyone that works at the company, but will change the lives of, frankly, anyone that uses products. And I think that's the kind of thing that I like is this impact that we can have on the world. I like the fact that I can be sat behind the curtain and no one knows who I am. But at the same time, if we execute well and we get to where we want to be able to get to, we're going to have a significant impact on hundreds of millions of people's lives.
Mhm. I mean, that must feel pretty rewarding. And
100%.
I hope it plays out for you because that's
So do I. So yeah, yeah.
just a couple of questions before we wind up. If you were to go back to square one, if you were to start from scratch, is there anything you'd do differently given what you know now?
Good question. The honest answer to that is probably, I mean, the honest answer to that is probably yes. And I just don't have an answer right now as to kind of what I would do differently. But then there's a bit of my gut that's saying no as well. And I think the reason that my gut says no is, you know, having built a few companies in the past, like some of them have been successful, some of them have been unsuccessful. The most I have learned has always been from the unsuccessful companies. And I have a strong belief that, when I'm thinking about investing in other founders and thinking about the kind of whether I think they're going to be the right founder to build a solution to the problem. One of the big things that I'm looking at is not whether they're just a first time founder or a second time founder, but whether they have failed in the past. Because if you can bounce back from failure and learn from the mistakes that you made, like fundamentally, it makes you a stronger person. It also means, in theory, as long as you bet on the right person, they're not going to make the same mistakes again. So I think while there are things I would certainly do to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made in the past, I think those mistakes that I've made in the past have allowed me to get to where I am now. So I don't regret them from that
I mean,
perspective.
I think it might have been Mark Zuckerberg or somebody said, why would we be worried about failure? Because it's failure that teaches us.
Exactly.
I can't remember what the exact quote is, but it's something along those lines. I mean, I think it's a really well made point. I mean, one of the things I love about working with entrepreneurs is that they're much more open about failure because A, you have to deal with failure or you go bankrupt, but also
Yeah, exactly.
there's tremendous joy in fixing problems and figuring out a new way to do things. I mean, there's a lot of joy in that, I've always felt.
Yeah, 100%. I think like one of the guys in our team puts it quite well, and it's in early stage startups, you are essentially in a forest with a torch and you can't see any way out. And it's your job is to use that torch to find your way out of the forest. And sometimes you will find your way out of the forest and sometimes you won't. But if you're not enjoying the searching around the forest trying to find a way
Yeah.
out, then startups aren't for
Yeah,
you.
you're in the wrong game, aren't you? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
A couple of last questions then. If you were to offer a piece of advice to a rookie CEO, what would it be?
that is a good question. And I feel wholly unqualified to answer that question. Single piece of advice. I mean, like, there's so many different things. The one that's coming up, I think it's just because we've been talking about it, has been like around like finding the right team and hiring and stuff like that. So I think
That sounds to me like pretty good advice, actually.
that's a pretty important one, is like make sure that you're hiring the right people. I mean, like that's not that's an easy thing to say, a more difficult thing to do in principle, and often kind of just comes down to, you know, your gut. But I guess that is like one of the other big things I'd say as well, is like trust your gut. Like I spent 6, 7 years of my life trusting my brain decisions over my gut decisions. And I remember reflecting on the company that didn't work out, and kind of saying to myself, like, being completely tough on myself. Like, were there times where my gut was telling me to do something else and I went with my brain instead? And the answer was yes. And I think one of the big things, again, that I've just learned to do in this company is like trust my gut. Like, if something feels wrong, don't do it. And if something feels right, do it. Like, very like woo-woo things to say, but I think at the end of the day, like, our gut is our second brain. There's a reason that we kind of call it the second brain, and I think it can, for very difficult decisions to make where there are significant unknown unknowns, the gut can be a good guiding principle, because essentially your gut is your values. They're going to be good. It's going to be a good guiding principle as to whether you're doing the right thing or not.
Yeah, yeah. And a great piece of advice to end with, I think, actually. I mean, trusting your gut, pretty important place to get to, I think. I mean, for all sorts of people,
Yeah,
and it's something that you have to. It takes time to acquire that judgment, doesn't it? It's not something that can be
100%.
done. I mean, you learn through a series of experiences, and it's only over time that you begin to realise that actually you can trust your gut, and that leads to good decisions. So it's a really good place to end, actually. Tom, thanks for making a bit of time to talk us through that. I
No,
mean,
thank you.
what a brilliant proposition. I mean, I think it's a fantastic bit of tech that you're developing, and
I appreciate it.
going forward, I mean, I'm sure we'll hear more about it in due course because it's so exciting. But thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat.
No, honestly, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, Tom. See you soon.
See you later.
Bye bye.